You're listening to Hustle and Flow, a podcast to inspire and bring together female actors and artists in the entertainment industry. I'm Heidi, an actress, female fitness coach, and self-love junkie.
And I'm Kesley, singer-songwriter and social media influencer. Are you ready to manifest your dreams? Let's get started.
I feel like I need to pull out every hat and just be like,
I know.
who knows what I do? So I like to now, I'm working on this for myself. I like to put first and foremost, I'm an actor. And then I manage an acting studio. I manage Mornell Studios in Atlanta. And then I have a couple of other little small side hustles. And I have a book blog and I write about books because I wouldn't stop talking about them and people were like, shut up. So I decided to just put it on Instagram and then talk about it there so people could stop having to listen to me talk their ear off when they were like, how are you? And I was like, I'm great. Do you want to read a book? So yeah.
I love that. I'm actually a major bookworm too, but I wonder if we're into the same genre of books. I actually, even though I'm an actor, I've never read a fantasy book or a sci-fi book. I'm obsessed with self-help. So yeah, what are you reading right now?
Well, self-help wise, I just finished Amber Ray's book, Choose Wonder Over Worry. It is so good. In terms of just sort of shifting how you're thinking and just I am this person, I am the list person. I have to have a goal so I can visualize it and see it. And I'm just steps A to B, what's next? And the book just for me was oh, wait a minute. Why don't I think about what's possible instead of worrying? And it's great. And there's a lot of writing exercises. And for me, if I can write it out, it helps me with clarity in terms of what's next? What do I want to do? So I loved that. It's Choosing Wonder Over Worry by Amber Ray. And that was great.
So, okay. Do you believe in manifestation? Are you into that?
Yes, definitely.
Let's jam on that.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. My mom is super open and has always shown me so much from the jump. And she's always sort of been anything's possible. And then she's always sort of been visualization is how you do it. My dad played college basketball and how I learned to play catch is, you see the ball into your hands, visualize catching the ball. So just from there, my family's pretty big on if you can see it, you can do it. So that's why sort of manifestation just sort of vibes with me. I really, at the start of acting wise, I was I want to be on Scandal. Because it was the first time that I'd seen someone who looks like me, talks like me. I'd been a Shonda Rhimes fan because of Grey's Anatomy. And I was no, I'm going to be on this show. And visual. So there were photos of Kerry Washington all over my room. This was before I had sort of nailed down the idea of a vision board. And then Shonda Rhimes or just the ABC sort of network logo,
wow.
Just tacked up. And I just was I'm gonna do this. And they the office in LA is so great. And I was hello, let's make this work. One day of reading for Scandal, one day of reading for Grey's Anatomy. And then I think by the 10th time of going in for them, they just knew. They were this girl really wants to be on this show. And and people sort of give you that wink and a nudge in a room, and I was yep, this is a universe I should be living in. This is what I want to do. And then, every time I closed my eyes, I was Shonda Rhimes, Kerry Washington, let me work with you. So yeah, and I did, and that was my first real acting gig. And so for me since then, I'm just sort of no, if you can see it, if you can sort of, obviously you have to do the work as well outside of that, but if you can just to me, seeing it, believing it, and just sort of visualizing what does it feel like. So what does it feel like to be on set? What does it feel like to be in your trailer? Let's keep it real. What does it feel like to be in your honey wagon? Yeah. What does that feel like to you? What will that feel like to be on set? What will it feel like to be saying those lines with someone, and visualizing yourself all the way there? And then I just kept pushing it, and that was my first gig. So I am a firm believer in manifestation.
Do you have any crazy on-set stories?
Yes. So I am a horrible driver. terrible. Like, should not, definitely not. And I just kept being like, okay, you can't let your fear consume you. Like, don't let this fear consume you. And I played a police officer on NCIS New Orleans. And I'm like reading, and I'm like, it says she drives. It's like, oh no, oh no. Just let me be in my own squad car. Please, please, please. No, no. No, so like the whole day, like, you know, we're doing an interrogation, we're moving from location to location, and it's just like the countdown clock of having to drive a car. And as soon as we get there, they're like, okay, so the 2 leads are in the car with you. You need to pull up to the scene, get out of the car dramatically, and like take off on a chase. And I was like, this is my nightmare. This is my absolute actor nightmare. And like, listen, on a dirt bike, like a go-kart, like if it is just me in a vehicle, fine. But like driver's license is there. But like I'm telling you, if it is something where it's like, hey girl, parallel park while we're all watching. No.
Oh my God.
No. And so yeah, it was just sort of like fear, like mind over matter. That's sort of like, you are terrified and you're not gonna be able to do this. I went, we were on lunch or whatever, and I was like, no, you need to not, this is not about eating for you. You need to go take yourself to your trailer and meditate. And I had to like meditate and just calm down. And I was like, you can drive, like you have trailered a boat, you can drive. I don't know where this weird mental thing about performing the act of driving on camera
stresses you out. Oh.
Yes.
Oh
And I'm
my
okay.
God.
Listen, I did it, but like definitely my favorite part was like hitting the curb. There's a beautiful take of me just like tapping that and every actor in the car going, did you just? And I was like, I sure did.
Oh my God.
Did. And just like being bad at it. And like that's the sort of like, I don't know, I just like I've decided to be human and like have fears and not try to like muscle through stuff, but like still try to keep going. And so like that for me, like I think if you would have asked me like 6 years ago, would I have been able to sort of like woman up and do it? No. I hate, like that is like, that's my thing. Jump off of something, you know, get punched in the face, chase somebody, fine. But for some reason, driving on camera makes me want to throw up.
Oh my God. That is so funny. So like, could you handle, I mean, obviously you've done like all of Sarah Mornell's classes, right? So you've done the intimacy. So like you could be naked on screen and you'd be fine.
Fine. Don't care. Like, I mean, obviously I care a little, but like not enough that like that same level. I mean, I'm talking like girl sitting there in my bulletproof vest going,
oh my
I
God.
have to park a car. It's so stupid. It's like those weird little things that are just these sort of like, because I'm not like, I don't know, but did you guys drive at 16 immediately? Like, did you just drive?
I actually, this sounds so privileged, but I grew up with a golf cart. And so I taught myself how to drive on a golf cart. And when I moved to LA, I was 15. And in LA, you have to be like 15 and a half to get your permit. But in Atlanta, it's 15. So I should not brag about this, but illegally drove all my friends around with no adult supervision in LA for like a year.
What?
I did.
That's amazing. That's how you learn though, is like doing it.
Exactly. That's, you know, and my mom knew. My mom was like, yeah, sweetie, I'm the cool mom.
Oh my
gosh. Yeah, I drove a lot. Did you not? Like, why are you afraid of cars?
No, I have no idea. I think in my mind, like a car is like a and I ride horses, so like this doesn't make any sense. But like to me, a car is like a giant weapon.
Yeah, I mean,
I have like massive car fear, so I think like I hate it. Like I literally hate it. I like got a license. My parents, and again, this is privilege too, right here. Yeah. My parents got me a car straight out of the gate, and I was like, no. Yeah, you can ask my dearest high school friend who used to pick me up and drive me to school, because I was like, nope.
And you had a car?
That's funny. They're like, you have a brand new car over there. No, we're not driving that.
We're not driving.
You can drive today.
You can drive it.
Wow. I love what you just said about, you were like, I'm just going to be a human and have fears and insecurities. What a beautiful statement, Marissa. And I just feel like performers, right? Like, or not even just performers, but people, why do we like want to be so perfect and like appear like we don't have any fears or insecurities?
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean to you in your art? You
know, I think for a really long time, that sort of like fake it till you make it thing was just something that got so drilled into my brain. And then I was like, hold on, like my background is improv and like Second City and performing at UCB and Iowa West. So like I'm used to failing in public, you know, so like I'm come from that sort of like smart nerdy pants must get an A. So then when I had to translate that to being on stage for improv and like you pitched a sketch, now let's put it up in front of an audience and no one laughs, like you're failing in public. And there's just sort of this thing of being like, you know, if you like yourself enough and you sort of just embrace this fear of like not being like rubber stamped of you're perfect and an A, like sometimes like the best material comes from that and the best experiences and growth comes from that. I wouldn't be the writer that I am in terms of like writing like scripts and sketches if I didn't let myself be afraid, because some of that fear like is like, okay, can you do it? Like put it out there, like just do it. And that for me has been like, yes, there's nothing less about me. There's nothing, no shortcoming because I'm afraid and I'm not like, you know, Sasha Fierce, like that's just like not my MO. Like the reality is like I still have stage fright. Like it cracks me up when people are like, oh, I'm so brave. I'm like, that's good for you, but like in reality for me, like before I walk into a room, I am meditating, I am you know, like chanting, not listening to anybody else, because like there's fear, and I don't think that makes you any less of a creative or an actor. And like the moment that I was like, wait a minute, like I'm still good at what I do. For me, it's been powerful because I think so much of like the acting training and just some of the voices are like, get over it. And I'm like, nope, like it's still there. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's really good. And I feel like you can bring all of that into the room. I'd like to hear a little bit about your process and how you bring that to your roles, and like, you know, of course the meditating and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think what attracted me to Sarah, because I met Sarah in LA, and just sort of like how she did things was, you know, my undergrad is in theater. I feel like some of the arty woo-woo creative stuff, like we've checked the boxes, like we've covered it in terms of that. Like I felt strong as an actor. And then I was like doing improv and sort of very big, obviously, for some of the comedy stuff. But then there was this like technical piece for me that was missing, you know, that after doing theater so much and like you're projecting to the last row and just sort of was so big, getting to experience and realizing how much work the camera does and how much everything around you is doing. It was almost like freeing, because I didn't have to do so much work in terms of like me creating an environment and all of this stuff happening. So that really sort of for me was really appealing. And then also like same thing you said, Heidi, like I was like, everyone's working. Like, what is this about? Do you know? Yeah, because like in LA, I was in a ton of classes and like, was my like artistic spirit being fed? For sure. Absolutely. I was in like a weekly class, then I was in the conservatory at Second City, and like I felt like I was moving and grooving as a creative. But I didn't feel like as like a business person, I was thriving. And for me, what's most interesting about for acting is sort of the businessy, more sort of cut and dry part of things. And I think when I embraced how much of a business this is, and like where I can be creative and like where people want to actually see the human and not like this wild artist stumbling into rooms, that sort of changed things for me. And also just sort of, again, I come from that sort of nerdy background. Like I need a little bit of, not a science, but I need something clear that's like, okay, if you get an audition and you pick something up, like go watch it, you know, go watch it, go learn the language. And part of like, you know, like we talked about Scandal, for me was like Scandal pacing. Like, you know, you would not have booked that show if you didn't understand Scandal pacing. And at the time, I didn't recognize that was sort of a part of how like Sarah teaches you how to watch TV and sort of that stuff. But that's what I was innately doing. And what I also liked about Sarah is it was never a sense of, cool, if it's my way or the highway, I could still sort of bring in the other stuff that works for me. So that's sort of what I kept with that. But like, you know, if you get, depending on like what the project is, and I feel like any actor does this, is like, I'm going to look at it. This is going to sound woo-woo. So like, so ride with me. But typically, like, I feel like you can hear people. like you can hear people, and like I can sort of feel like what they want to say, how like what they feel like to me. And usually there's like some music that's associated with the person. There's just sort of like an inherent sort of like voice for me that comes from whoever they are. Watchmen, her name's Lorna, and she's in the movie theater, and she's part of, it's like, you know, the parallel of like the Tulsa massacre is still happening, but then there's this stuff happening in Watchmen. Gosh, what is his name? His name is Blake, and the song is Retrograde. And like, it just like keeps you like right on the edge of hysterical tears that I needed to be able to like go in the room. And I just was like, God, this is her song. Like, this is what she wants to say. Like, this is who she is. But then like you marry that with the technical of like, all right, I'm going to glance there. I'm going to like pick my eyes up here. Like this works here. And then it's going to get a little messy because she's hysterical in the scene. And it like works. Like it works to like marry that stuff together. And then, you know, have to like come out of it, sit there and like talk to the director after you're like a mess. And I just, for me, like I can hear their voice and then we're done. Like that's how the audition is for me.
Wow. So you're saying you almost like channel your character.
Little woo, but yes, like once you get over the like technical sort of like, okay, this is this is that, I always just sort of like want to hear them. It doesn't happen with everything. Like there's some gigs where like, you know, you're just like, you want some coffee? And it is, you want some coffee. But there's some stuff for me where I'm like, oh my God, like this is like, that's like, this is the song, this is the sound, this is like, this is what she wants to wear for this, you know, just like that's how I feel about some of that stuff.
That is gold.
That's deep.
That is so gold, because this is a numbers game, right? I love what you said about the business side of it. I think a huge part of, and you can speak to this too, like you're coming out with an album, you're doing all sorts of things, right?
Oh my
So
God.
Kesley is a musician.
Very
And
cool.
I just think so many people like subscribe to the struggling artist thing where they're like, I'm in acting classes and, you know, I'm like, they are like truly in it, right?
Mhm.
But there is like the business side of it, you know, and you need to treat it as a job.
What was the turning point for you when you were like, oh, this is a business, let me channel that? Like, what brought that on?
So I was performing at Second City. I had one of my castmates, their agent came to our show. He went with us to, anyone who goes to Second City Hollywood would know this bar, to Bordner's afterwards. And we're having a drink, and like there's people from other shows who were hanging out, and we totally kicked it. I felt a vibe. And normally for me, I'm like on instinct, like, okay, this is a connection. So I thought, all right, I'll email him. So I emailed him the next day and was like, here's my stuff. Like, you know, I just booked Scandal. Here's me. I've really been sort of DIYing my career and my training.
Nice.
This guy sends me an email back that's like, that's nothing to be proud of. Yes. And
That's all
like,
he said?
No, he's like, that's something to be proud of. Let me be honest with you. It felt like only my client and the rest of you guys was like, he was a standout. The rest of you were not memorable. It was such a pleasure meeting you. I think you're a really interesting young lady. But maybe you should ask him for some lessons. Now, this email like put me in this like black hole of like 2 weeks of going, what am I doing? Who am I? What is this? Oh my God. No, I'm serious. I definitely was like in a black hole, whatever, for a few days. But I had this moment of like, this is a business. He does not see dollar signs when he looks at me. He doesn't get it. There is nothing within me that he feels like fired up about. And it just sort of made me go, oh, I don't want to work with anyone who doesn't feel excited about me. And it's a business. They're like, even if you vibe with someone, like even if you're friends with someone, it is a business. And that sort of numbers game thing we talked about, I realized like at some point, like if you're auditioning a lot and people are calling you in a lot and like the opportunities that are coming, like it's also that, like when it's like you're auditioning like 2 times and like you have 2 shots, like those are big gambles, you know. When you're in Atlanta and you're really lucky and the auditions are sort of like rolling in, this was a different time entirely, you just have a better shot because you have better odds. And like, yes, it's talent, yes, it's that, but the odds are more in your favor. And that was just for me, like, I was like, oh my God, people can just be like cutthroat. I was so used to sort of like a theater sort of kumbaya feeling, to have someone just be like, no, I don't like you. I was like, cool. Like,
oh yeah, in theater it's
Yeah.
like, let's all sit in a circle and hold hands and send energy to everybody, and we're gonna have a great show and it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, and it's teamwork, and everyone here is the same worth in the cat. And it's like, no. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, that was terrible, and it was definitely like sort of traumatizing, but at the same time it also was like, depersonalize all of it. Depersonalize, just like move through. And that sort of, I don't know, I just like sort of am not like anymore. I'm like, it is a business, and like there are people who you create and forge amazing relationships with, but like it is a business.
Yeah. And I'm almost getting a sense of like, okay, yes, we need to be on top of our technical game. We need to have our business ducks in a row. But something I'm getting from you is you don't have to do so much. You know, like if you just show up and you're a whole human with all your fears and doubts and all your insecurities and all your life experiences and like your knowledge, you're going to bring something that nobody else can bring.
I think it's really weird when we feel like we're not enough, and that sort of like panic. And do not get me wrong, like there are moments sometimes when I open an audition and I'm like, nope, no way, don't know what I'm doing. I clearly have not been doing this since I was a child. Get me out of here. Can't do it. But there's sometimes where you're just like, wait a minute, I don't know anyone else who's gonna bring Marissa. So like that's all I got. And like, and if that, like, that's enough, it is enough. And I don't know. Sometimes, like, you know, especially in the age of self-tapes, like, and you keep watching your tape over and over again, and you're like, what's missing? What is it? And I'm like, no, this is what I bring to it. I like, it's technically proficient. I see the like creative work there. Like at this point, it's down to like, do they want Marissa Chanel Hampton to do it?
Yeah.
And that's enough. So.
You said something at the beginning of our interview here, and you were like, when we asked you what you do, you're like, well, let me start with, I'm an actor because I'm trying to do that for myself. Something along those lines. Can you unpack that a little? Like what that meant?
Oh, yeah. And Heidi talked about this a little, that like struggling actor sort of thing that sort of gets bandied about. I used to say everything but actor. I would lead with like 50 other jobs. For a while I was like, I'm a comedian, because I felt like that was more respectable. And like, where is this coming from? Like, where is this sort of like impression, like just being downloaded? And I hated it. And like suddenly I realized, I was like, you're embarrassed to say you're an actor because you don't feel qualified enough, that you don't feel worthy enough. And I was like, what is that nonsense? Like, who said that to you? Or like, where has that been programmed in your brain? So for me, I'm actively trying to lead with it. Like, I'm an actor. I'm an actor. I'm an actor. I had a friend recently, like, in sort of this national conversation about diversity and inclusion and like Black Lives Matter, who was like, I'm going to shout out Black creatives. And he posted me as an actor. And I was like hysterical, because I was like, so often my role is like support and guidance in terms of like working for the studio, or like, and just even like sort of like my other side hustles in terms of like editing and things for people. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm an actor. Like, it is okay to lead with the fact that like I'm an actor, and that's cool, and it's enough. And yeah, and I'm like, why would you not think you're an actor? Like, what's like?
Yeah, I think I've shared this quote before, but it's so good, and I feel like it's Paulo Coelho from The Alchemist. I'm pretty sure it could be The Art of, or The War of Art instead. I don't know. It could be Stephen Pressfield. But have you read both of those books, by the way? Okay, of course. The greater the resistance, the more sure you can be that you must go for that thing, the more sure you can be that you must be that thing.
That's good.
No, I love that.
I love that too. So, okay, question, because you asked me this the other day, and I noticed you said, I am an actor. Why do we not say actress?
I have no idea. I can't tell if this is something in me being like, I can play with the boys. I have no idea. I have no idea.
I do it too. Everybody does it too. Yeah. Like, what's up with that? Is actress less respectable?
I don't know. And then someone the other day was trying to have this conversation about me, that we should make it non-binary in terms of like award show categories, and just do like best actor. And I was like, okay, I totally understand this argument, but then I was like, oh my God, I feel like so often like women's work in entertainment gets so, not necessarily like overlooked, but so often I feel like, you know, you have these films where like a woman says 2 lines.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
I don't know if we're there yet or
Right.
ready. So for me, I think I just sort of say actor is like, I'm an actor, and like I don't say comedian, I say comedian. Like I think it's like some sort
Right.
of like
There's
weird,
no like female word for comedian. And I agree with what you're saying about like women in film and television do get swept under the rug. We absolutely do. We've come a long way, but we absolutely do. And like, I do hear the argument of it should just be inclusive, non-binary, like we are all doing the same thing. Yes. But does that also like kind of diminish like all the hard work that women have done to like have, you know, equal rights? Like we should also like be recognized. So I don't know.
I have no idea. Like, I would definitely, I'd love to hear like someone who has like more insight, tell me more. Or like, how do you make it representative across the board? And like, you know, how do we do more? I feel like it must be some sort of weird power dynamic that we're all sort of asserting ourselves as like, I'm not going to use this term, like this gendered other term, because it feels like less than. So I want to say actor, but I'm not sure, because it is like, it is consistently across the board. I don't think I ever call myself an actress. I always say actor.
I'm going to start saying actress.
I mean, like, take it back. I don't know. I like, it's hilarious because I'm trying to think of like, I think other people do, will say that to me. Oh, so you're an actress. I'm like, yeah, I'm an actor. And it's a weird, like, autocorrect. I don't know.
Yeah, I think somewhere along the line, like when I was living in Hollywood, I think I remember hearing someone say, like, if you're an actress, then you're a hooker or something like that. And so I'm like, well, I'm definitely not that. So, but it's funny how we'll take one thing that someone says and then you make it mean this whole thing, you know?
Yeah, I want to ask a kind of personal, I guess personal to me question, because I'm a singer. I could say the same things that you just said about that, because I never would say I'm a singer. Now I do. But I also have a lot of side hustles. Both of us do. And it's getting to be a lot. Sometimes it's a lot. So have you ever felt in your life with all of your different jobs and stuff that like if you had maybe cut back on some side hustles and focus on acting more, then you would have been somewhere else? Or like, you know, do you know what I'm getting at exactly? Like, do you have any advice for somebody who's kind of doing all the side hustles?
Or are you trying to figure it out still?
I'm not going to say like I have it all figured out by any means. Work-life balance is not something I have figured out. If you ask any of my friends, they're like, no, ma'am, get it together.
I mean, I know how many hours you work at the studio. It's insane.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about your work-life balance as well. Like,
doesn't exist. I'm not good at that. Like, I'm first to admit I'm terrible at that. But I also think for me, again, it's that weird struggling actor thing. I'm not into it. Like, I don't buy that. I do not believe in this sort of like, there's like this weird sort of thing that I encountered sometimes that where people were like, that like suffering creates great art. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think it definitely can inform you, you know? But I also think like for me, like I've always had a full-time job, or I had 3 jobs, or I had like something happening that, because for me, figuring out a way to find like some sort of, not necessarily financial security, but financial peace was helpful in allowing me to be creative. Because if I wasn't worrying about the rent, if I wasn't worrying about my bills being paid or putting gas in my car or paying for a parking meter in LA, I could focus on the audition. Now, with that said, there always comes the like mindset of like, am I being texted by like 50 actors with like normal like work questions while I'm at an audition? For sure, yes. So like there's a balance that I'm still trying to figure out. But for me, like, and I will always say financial peace, because I think financial security is something that's like hard to achieve for us in this weird industry. But financial peace for me just allows more room for creativity. And yes, are there times where I'm like, wow, I hear some actors talk about having like 2 auditions, and that was a rough day for them because they like prepped their auditions, they taped them, and that's all they did. Whereas like for me, I'm like, got up at the crack of dawn, like started learning one audition, then went to work, handled that, and then left work at like 10 o'clock at night, and then like then worked on the audition again, then snuck in some time to tape it at some point. So yes, do I think I probably sometimes could deliver better, or sometimes is there more that I could be giving to my work? For sure. But then there's sometimes where I'm like, when I don't have all the time to like dwell on it or like want it or need it so bad, that it's just sort of like, get it done, man. Like tape it, feel it, do the work and get it done. So that's just sort of, so I'm always sort of like stuck in a crossroads about that, because like I would love to be able to be like, I work 9 to 5, that's it. And then I like do my acting thing. But I've not been able to figure out how to do that yet.
Yeah. Do you experience resistance, which I'm sure everybody does, right? So like, do you even have time to experience resistance? Like how do you turn auditions down? Do you even have time to really think about resistance? Or are you just like, I don't have time to think about resistance. I'm just going to do it when I can and do it.
So yes. Okay. So do I experience resistance? For sure. Like that sort of thing where we talked about where like, you get something and you like have that weird self-doubt where you're like, oh no, this isn't my type. Oh no, this is really hard. Oh my God, look at all the people involved. Oh, am I worthy? Yeah. Does all that stuff sort of want to come up, and that weird little like voice? For sure. That always, because that's just fear of doubt and insecurity. And like, do I turn stuff down? Sometimes I think like for me, as a Black woman, I feel like there's sometimes where I'm like, this doesn't represent me or my community well. So no. Then I have to do the sort of like that weird dance of like, oh, how established are you to be able to like say no? But I do think there's power in saying no. So like, yes, definitely. Like, there's work I want to do, and there's work that like I just feel like is like, who is this serving? Like, who in the end of the day is this serving? And like, will I look back on this 10 years from now and been like, oh God, why? Like, that's just not where I want to be. So yeah, sometimes for sure that comes up, but like, I don't know, again, there's like just not enough time to sort of like sit and dwell. I think so much of like, my parents are pretty like baller, I feel like, in terms of like surviving and thriving, and they sort of move through stuff. So I don't ever feel like agonizing over something is crazy. I booked 2 things at the same time, and it was like this weird dance of like scheduling wouldn't move, and it was like pick one or the other. And
what was it? Can you say?
I can say the one that I picked.
Okay.
The one that I didn't pick was recurring. It was a pilot. Who sort of knew where it was going to go. And the other thing was Watchmen. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I get the sense that like it's Watchmen. And I had been really lucky, and Megan Lewis in Atlanta has been like the angel of all angels in terms of like career-wise. Will call me in for anything, has faith in me when I'm like, this is a 40-year-old white man's role. So you sure you want to see me? But okay, fine. But like angel of all angels. And we did the callback, and I remember sitting in that room, and again, going back to being a human, and just connected with Stephen Williams a lot, who's the director and one of the EPs for Watchmen. And like, we're just talking and we're finishing, we're talking about being a comedian and like growth of a career. And, you know, I was like, that felt so nice as an actor. Like that felt like the work I want to be doing, the sort of conversations I want to be having. And the other gig was fine. It was fine. It was a comedic role. It was funny. They were like, we're going to probably make it recurring after the pilot. That's great. And like so many different voices. Like you have like some reps being like, oh, just take the job, the other job. A manager in LA being like, what are you talking about? You know, you take the other job. And just like a lot of sort of going back and forth. And I am definitely one of those people who doesn't want to disappoint anyone. Like that's something that I always work on, is like, no, Marissa, what do you want? Not what like will trouble the waters or shake the table. What do you want? And like, I was like, I want to work on Watchmen. I don't care if that's like gonna get on people's nerves. I don't care if that means that this other person won't see me again for the rest of my life. I want to work on Watchmen. And I did. And like I watch that episode, I like think about the day, I think about every single person I interact with, I think about like what I want to do next. And I'm like, why would I have taken more than 5 minutes to make the decision? I knew from my gut instinct that's what I wanted. And I'm like, and like, you know, at the end of the day, like I look back at the series and I'm like, what are you thinking?
Oh no.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think like in terms of resistance, I'm trying to get super clear on like, no, if everything in you says yes, or like, or if there's a like an answer that's coming, obviously heed that.
Mm-hmm.
But then like, if it's just your normal sort of like actor doubt, move through it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you're saying that. I'm reading a book that you should read.
Tell
Okay,
me more.
it's called Open Wide by Melissa Ambrosini, and I believe the title or the book, it says like how to unlock like soulful relationships and like toe curling orgasms, sex, whatever.
Yes.
I don't know if that's really what it is, but it kind of is. But anyways, she talks about, it's really not even a book about sex. It's a book about being a woman and like staying in your feminine energy and like like having healthy boundaries and like experiencing life, manifesting life from a place of being completely open and like, you know, receiving, but also knowing when in your body it's a full hell yes from your body. So I just love what you said, because like I'm trying to approach things in life right now as well from a place of, is this a hell yes? Or is this like, am I trying to please somebody? Or like, am I showing up to this because it's for somebody else? It's going to make them happy or whatever it might be. So I just absolutely love everything you just said about that. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Can you talk more about your experience in your industry as a Black woman?
Yeah. You know, I feel like now there's so much where I'm like, oh, I see myself there. I see myself here. I see myself there. Oh, I could do that. That opportunity is there. But like, I think about when I graduated from college and it was like Kerry Washington was the only person who looked like me and sounded like me, who I was like, oh, I could be on that show. And like, that was sort of mind-boggling. And like you come out as an actor and like you're in classes where they're like typing you or they're telling you like what show you could be on, and I'm like, well, I got one. So
what was your type?
Yeah.
it was always sort of unclear. Also, like I feel like now that body image and like those sort of standards are shifting, it was all, the note was always sort of my favorite note from an agent in LA. It was like, look, you're so far in the middle. You aren't like thin enough to be a leading lady, but you're not fat enough to be a funny fat friend. You're in the middle. You're doing a disservice to both of us if I sign you. And I was like, I don't know. I think this is fine. Like, I mean, you know, I was like, I'm running Spartan races. Like, this is my like healthy body and who I am. So I don't know. There was like that weird sort of tension there of like, okay, you're a Black woman. You aren't like funny urban fat friend, and you're not Halle Berry. So like, where do you fit in all of this? And there was a really long time where I was like trying to figure out like, okay, I have to find like a niche. I have to find like what I am, where I fit, who are like my people who like are similar careers. Oh, and I'd be like, oh, I'm like her, but like 15 pounds heavier, or oh, I'm like her, but like skinnier. And I was like, nope, that is never going to work for me. Like, it's just not. And I know there's some advice that are like, follow this actor and model your career after them. I did not see anyone who was similar. I just like didn't see those sort of people. And you know, things got better. Like you've got Viola Davis on How to Get Away with Murder, and she's smart and devious and unlikable and is like got all this sort of stuff happening. And I was like, okay, getting closer. All right, see a lot of stuff happening there. But I think, and that just sort of for me ended the sort of like need to find someone who was like analogous to like myself, you know? And some people, like, they teach you to write those pitch letters and be like, I'm so-and-so, but with a blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I got nobody. Like,
Wow.
and like, I think once I let that go, I was like, okay, again, you got to book Marissa Chanel Hampton, because I don't, you know, I'm not anyone's like poor man's like Gabrielle Union or anything like that. Like, there's just, like, once I sort of threw it out the window, I think that was helpful, because for me, that was a limiting belief, that I just didn't see anyone or think that there was anyone like me. And also there was like a lot of acting training, and a lot of acting teachers were like, hey, if you don't do that, and this is my least favorite thing to be told in a room is, could you do it, but do it more urban? I'm always sort of like, one, what does that mean? Because is that your experience of Blackness? Like, which fine if it is, because that's fine. But like, it would not be honest for me to do that. And if that's what you're looking for, I'm probably not the person you're thinking of. And also, why is that the only experience of Blackness that you want to put out into the world? So, and once I was like, nope, I don't have to do that if I don't want to.
Did you say that to a casting director? Were you like, no?
I've always been like, and what do you mean by that? Because I will directly challenge you over and over about this, just because I'm like, what does that mean to you? Do it more urban? Like, please tell me what that means. Or my favorite is like, put your flavor on it. I'm like, well, what do you mean?
Oh my God.
What did they say? Did they?
They're just like, you know, your flavor. And I'm always like,
Wow.
And like, it's from people who are well-intentioned. I don't even think that, like, but that's the sort of microaggression that like you're dealing with in the business. Or I worked on a commercial, and it was so funny. They were like, oh yeah, she's like built like Serena Williams. We brought you here because you like the way you fill out a skirt. I'll never forget. I was like, I'm like in Toronto on like a set to film like 4 campaigns for something. And I was like,
no.
What? What?
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
But like, that's just sort of like, so that stuff has always sort of been like, for me, like, okay, but is that your overall experience in the industry? No. I've met so many people who are like, they're looking for something different. They want to see something broader. They have like a bigger message to get out there, you know? And even like, so that's never sort of been to me like, oh God, this is my sob story of the business. But like, yeah, at first I was like, I don't know where I fit in all of this, because I think the traditional standards of beauty don't necessarily include me. The idea of like what someone like me looks like is not necessarily where I'm fitting in the box.
Right.
And it wasn't until like, you know, there were different creators putting stuff out and sort of the initiatives to cast more diversely that I was sort of like, okay, this is where we're at, and like I can fit in here. And that has been sort of life-changing. And also my need to sort of like fit in a box has been sort of like out of here. And also like, you know, creating for yourself. And when people can see on film you doing something other than what they expected, yeah, for sure. And I mean, mind you, there's the normal Black woman in business of like, I don't come to set without my hair done, like, ever.
Wow.
I actually worked on a movie. It's never gonna ever come out. I hope to Jesus it never comes out. But I worked on this movie as my first feature film, and it's called Prepper's Grove. And I was like a lesbian lover, and my lover is Black. And every day that she came to set, they had nothing for her hair. They had no makeup for her. Nothing at all. And if she made a comment about it, the producer was like, oh, she's just making a big deal. She's being dramatic or whatever. Yeah. And I remember just thinking about that. Like, I was like, that's not something that I will ever have to experience. Like, why was that not a thought? Like, why when they were looking for hair and makeup, which by the way, they literally like were getting like hair pieces for another white girl who's on the freaking show or on the movie, because she cut her hair, so they had to give her extension. Like, they went to a hair salon, they went to a beauty store. Like, why was it not a thought?
I don't know. And yes, I get that, because like you are like, I don't want to be seen as difficult. You're lucky to be here. So like there is sort of like that. But yeah, I think from day one, like I never show up without like my hair done, ready to give assurances of like, if they're like, here's what we can do, this is where we're at, blah, blah, blah. And I always bring my own makeup just in case, like just in case. But yeah, it's that for me is always sort of funny. And I didn't realize like, I knew the extent to which like, it was a thing, but I think it was Yvette Nicole Brown, maybe, and she like posted this whole thing about it, how like she was still doing it in her career. And then I have a friend who was a series regular on a show, and she was like, oh no, I get up at 4:00 in the morning and my girl comes to my house and does my hair, because if I go to set, my hair won't get done. Oh my gosh. So that was like, that part for me is like always hilarious, because I'm like, what? But yeah, it definitely has gotten better. I will say, like, from now to like my very first like gig ever, it's gotten so much better. So much better. But I definitely think that like, I don't know a single Black woman who has like not a concern. Like, I don't know a single one, unless she's bald. And even then, yeah.
That all sounds like a lot for you to go through as a woman. Just like how you think about yourself. You were talking about having that need to find your type or fit in, and now you don't have that need anymore. But like, did you have a mentor or somebody helping you go through that? Because you seem mentally very healthy and aware. But was that were you always that way, or has that been a process?
I definitely think that's a process. I do think like, I think comedy is so good for you. Like, sketch is so good for you, because like failing on your feet is such a like real, and like it's not the end of your life, you know. So that was super helpful for me and for my growth. I'm naturally a shy, introverted person, so like this has definitely taken time, but I've been lucky. Like, I worked with a group of Black comedians who were hilarious, and they were sort of going through the same experiences, and it was very nice to sort of be like, oh, this is universal. Got it. Not just me. This experience is universal. And like, that has sort of been like my journey through the industries. There's always been sort of little pockets here or there where people are like, hey, let's chat, let's check in. But then the rest of it is just sort of, I don't know, I just sort of feel like I have been often the only person of color in white spaces. So there's sort of also like a necessary survival thing of like, figure it out. So I don't know. I do think it's a journey. And I do think like things have changed somewhat, but I do think like there's room to go. But I just have been lucky to find either like other creatives who are supportive, or getting to work with them to feel like the contrast of like being the only white person in the group versus it being an all Black comedic troupe. You know, working on shows where you're like, oh, the person who's doing my hair is Black and understands what's happening. And if you spray my hair with a water bottle, we're going to have a bad day. So, you know, like little stuff like that is just like small stuff that's just like, oh, like just like moments of like clear sanity checks. I recently was talking to my manager and I was like, thank you. I just needed a sanity check. Just like someone else to say, you're not wrong. I agree. And I was like, oh, I'm good. And that's like every now and then I've been lucky to have wonderful people who provide that for me along the way. So like anytime there's been sort of any like angsty turmoil, there's always been someone. I couldn't tell you that I had like a specific mentor. I will say like managing the studio, I work with all women who like we deal with like, and so like we deal a lot with a lot of actresses. I said actress.
Yes.
And so like I get to hear a lot about sort of the female experience in the business versus sort of like what some actors are going through. And it's difficult for all of us, but getting to hear like from lots of different women, it's sort of a crash course in like what to do, what not to do. And also it's always been sort of a supportive environment from that sort of strength. And that's another cool thing about Sarah in general, is she's like, cool, I want to be surrounded by badass women. And I was like, okay. So like everyone I work with is sort of like kicking it in their own ways and like making this business how they want to, you know, make it and work through it.
What would you say, you know, to to the girl who's about to go study acting and start her life and her career?
Well, I don't know. I would feel like, do you want it? Like, do you really want it? Like, is it because you want to be famous, or do you want it? Like, does it light you up? Because this is a lot of no's. You know, I went from like booking a job, getting a direct offer, to not getting to be on TV again for like 5 years. For 5 years, where I was like, maybe not. What am I doing? So I want to know, like, does this light you up? Is this what keeps you up at night? Are you like me, where I have spent every waking moment reading every single, like, the white paper for how we'll get back to work in the age of coronavirus? Do you read deadline articles to see, like, who's working on this? What project does that person have? Do you follow other people's careers? Do you know, are you excited about people other than actors? Like, are there certain directors and EPs who just, like, you're like, how does their brain work like that? How did this person do that? And if that's what's like really lighting you up and like why you want to do this, then like, absolutely, like, go forward, go in this. And also know it is okay to be scared, and don't let anyone ever tell you that making it or being good at this means always being like confident or knowing that you've got it. Because I just don't, because like that's not truthful. So always, and sort of remember that like fear can be your friend, you know, and like if it's not lighting you up, don't do it. And you're enough. Like, you've got to be enough, and you have to be something that is more than just like, does booking the job mean my value? So you're enough. Because like, if the offers don't come through, you booked it, if like your agents aren't texting you every day being like, you're amazing, you're talented, like, are you enough? You know, like, because it has to be in the moments, especially like right now, where this, to me, I'm kind of blathering, but like, where this is a season of seeking for some people, where they're like, oh my God, what's next? There's no like goal to strive for. Oh my God, what is this period? Like, there has to be a sense of knowing. So for me, I want to find like a season of knowing that I'm enough, knowing that this is okay, knowing that this too shall pass. Like, if you don't know that you're enough, I would say go be an accountant or something else. Like, because there are no metrics for this. There's no like A, B, C, or D. And I think you can hit this massive highlight and be like, I made it, and then nothing. So unless you're like ready to ride the ride, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. I think unless it's like, this is what makes you tick and just sort of like keeps that engine going, nah, don't do it. Otherwise, it's real bumpy.
I want to ask you one more thing. Sorry.
Okay.
What does hustle and flow mean to you?
I think like we've talked about this, but to me, the hustle is like sort of how like I feel about acting is like putting in the work and doing it, but then also letting sort of like the manifestation and the visualization, like letting them marry. Like, that's the flow to me, is like when the work and the results meet from like all of the sort of like the, you know, the labor, that's like the physical sort of like technical crap, and then the labor of sort of like getting your mind right, getting your spirit and heart right, and then that's the flow. And when they meet, it's like, man, I'm in that good vortex. So
yeah. Yes.
Oh, I love that explanation.
Marissa, if people want to follow you or hang out with you or find out what books you're reading, where can they do that?
So you can follow me for just general weirdness and Marissa-ness at Marissa Chanel Hampton on Twitter and on Instagram. And then if you want to talk about books, and so I can just drive you mad with books, I'm at Ink and Paper Soul on Instagram, and that is also my blog.
I love it. I love it. Good. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. And until next time, hustle and flow.